Hello and welcome to NoCB, a grand strategy podcast. I am your host for this week and every week. I'm doing the 3MA script. I am your host for all eternity, TJ Hafer. With me is our amazing panel, including Lambert.
Hello there.
And including Father Loris.
What's up?
And our special guest for this week, Midgeman.
Hello there.
And as is tradition, since you are our guest, why don't you let the people who might not already know who you are and how you got into grand strategy games?
Oh, right, yeah, okay. So, hello, my name's Midgeman. I am a content creator. I've been doing this now for about 5 years, which is really shocking. And, yeah, I got into strategy games via watching people on YouTube. I was one of those people that kind of grew up as YouTube became a big thing. And then I myself had already kind of always played strategy games. It was... I grew up as an only child, so it was kind of, that's easy. You like history, and you don't have anyone to play with? Cool, you play strategy games. That's how that works. And from there, when I started seeing people, playing strategy games on YouTube, I picked up everything from there, and here we are today.
Nice. What channels and what games were you watching that kind of got you interested in the whole thing?
Oh, man. So, I guess I owe a lot, of my whole EU4 and all the paradoxy stuff to Quill.
Yeah.
I think a lot of at least creators of around my age who play strategy games owe a lot to Quill 18 because he was just the biggest strategy person for a long time. I also
absolutely
owe a lot
lovely
of,
man too.
Yeah, I know.
We need to get Quill on. I don't know why I haven't contacted him yet. We need to get Quill on at some point.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, I've met Quill twice, and we had him on the event the other week, and I fangirled every single time still. But it's just how it works. That's just me, and I was like, well, there you go. So Quill for all of that stuff, but the whole YouTube and content creation thing itself, as I said, I just kind of grew up with it all, and there was a good period of my teenage years where I was a massive console peasant and playing Modern Warfare 2 and all the kind of normal Call of Duty. I say normal in air quotes, like us strategy people are not normal in some way, but yeah, that the kind of standard, again in air quotes, kind of games. But then I went back to my roots of Total War and everything. And I used to watch, and I still watch quite a lot of Lionheart as well for Total War. And then I also met him and was like, oh my god! And then I found out that he lived 10 minutes away from where I went to uni, and it was through uni where I started content creation. I was like, the entire time you were a 10-minute walk from my house? What? The biggest thing I've noticed doing all of this is this industry, at least if you're British and you're a content creator, it's a really small world in terms of where you live. I helped Audrey Hill move house yesterday because he lived 20 minutes away from me. Alex the Rambler is from 20 minutes away from me as well, and we're both called Alex, and we play strategy games.
You're all damn Southerners.
We are all damn Southerners, yes.
Bloody Southerners.
But Mordred lives 40 minutes away from me, and it was yeah.
No, so are you in London then?
No, I'm in Kent.
Kent, fairly close.
It's pretty much London.
Yeah,
it's pretty much London.
Well, you're pretty close to Adaway and Count Christo then, as well. They're both in London.
Yes, I am. I'm all of us are very, very close together in the UK. It's really bizarre how but I didn't know any of this until we all kind of met properly at conventions and at PDXCon, and we were like, oh. Right, see, you actually really know where I live really well. That's
it's not an industry where we tell each other, "Oh, I live here." We could be next door neighbors and not know it.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
this is my address. Please come visit me.
I've had this discussion with some of the other American strategy people too, because we're like kind of jealous of you guys. It seems like everybody can just like go to each other's house and hang out. I mean, nobody can now because of pandemic.
You've not experienced the British train system. Like, it was
I haven't actually. The only times I've been to Britain, I took they put us on a cab from Heathrow to wherever the event was taking place.
Yeah, that is probably cheaper than taking a train, to be honest.
While I have heard bad things about the British rail system, I've heard worse things about the US train system. So if you've been on a US train, it'll be better, apparently.
No, I mean, Amtrak is a joke. Like, you're better off renting a car. Like our country is so averse to passenger rail for some reason.
Speaking of jokes, can you put on CC? Closed captions.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I totally forgot. Totally forgot to wake up CaptionBot. 1 second here. My bad. There we go. All right, CaptionBot.
Lovely.
CaptionBot is live.
Did you like that segue? Yeah. I thought that was a pretty good segue. I did like that segue.
That was a good segue. But yeah, in the US, it's like there's this cluster of us in San Francisco, which is kind of American games journalism mecca if you can afford to live there, which I could for like 2 years, and I had to leave because it's ridiculous. And then there's like a small cluster of people in like the Minneapolis St. Paul area, because that's where GamePro is GamePro still a thing? I feel like I should know this as a games journalist. I know they went through some rough times after GameStop stopped.
Just blame it on COVID.
Yeah.
If it's not a thing, it's COVID.
But then, like, I'm in Denver. There's like 2 other games journalists who live within 2 hours of me, and then anything else is like, I'd have to get on a plane to like actually see people who are working in my industry. So,
mind you, if you had like internal flights in America, pretty stress-free as far as flights go, you know.
Yeah, it can depend heavily on like the airline and like when you're flying. I'm lucky that Denver's airport is actually a pretty good airport. Like in the grand scheme of things, it's not too difficult. But so this is now an airport reviews podcast.
Berlin Airport, god damn.
So our first game we're talking about is OpenTTD. Video update.
Exactly.
I can segue this back into what we were talking to, though. But it was a fun fact that, like, the first time I met Mordred Viking was at Gatwick Airport on the way to my first ever PDXCon in 2018.
Oh yeah,
it was that, and we were both messaging each other on Benjamin Magnus's Discord server, and it was a turnaround thing. And it was like, and then we got talking. We're on the same flight. It was really, it was like on those things.
That's. I met a lot of people when I lived in San Francisco the same way, because we would all be flying to some press event out of SFO, and they usually book us on the same flight. Like the first PDXCon I went to, I met John Carnage, who's like the head of Twitch now, I think, or something like that, and like all these other like pretty big games journalists, just because we were on the same flight to PDXCon. But
no, in Europe, like taking a flight is incredibly stressful.
Oh yeah.
Hint, hint. Segue into the CK3 Dev Diary.
Yes. So our CK3 Dev Diary this week is about one of my favorite new features in Crusader Kings 3, which is the stress system. This is sort of a way to encourage you to roleplay the traits of your character, which I think is fantastic. I'm very glad that they are doing this. We've talked about it on the show multiple times before. This Dev Diary goes into it a little bit deeper. I don't think there's a lot that we haven't seen yet.
They keep mentioning it again and again and again because it seems so pervasive on every aspect of the game.
Yeah, I mean, basically based on your character's personality traits, if you do things that are in line with those personality traits, you will not accumulate stress. If you work against those personality traits, you will. Like if you're compassionate, if your character has compassionate and you're constantly executing people, you're going to get a lot of stress from that.
I also really liked how it played into the personality traits. Like in CK2, you always wanted to be diligent because diligent was just straight up positive. There was no problems with it whatsoever. And now it's actually going to give you more stress when you do things against your character.
Ambitious. Ambitious was the other huge one that was like, in CK2, you want everyone to be ambitious. Ambitious is like a gold nugget in your hand, and now it also increases your stress gain, which as a lifelong slacker, I feel very vindicated by this.
You're 15% less stressful.
If I could have been that like type A 4.0 GPA overachiever, but then I might have had a mental break and killed my designated heir.
You're talking to three Brits. We don't have a clue what any of that was.
I watch a lot of American TV. I understood it, but
something to do with school and good stuff.
4.0 is straight A's, so it was pretty much only the kids that didn't have a life and only cared about school. Not to judge. Yeah, some of them were my friends. Some of them were my friends, and I love you, but I don't know that all the stress you put on yourself was worth it.
Unlike us, as we talk about strategy games on our podcast.
Fun factoid, I graduated high school with a 1.9 GPA, which is basically a D+, I think. And I had the highest standardized test scores in my class, but I didn't like ever do homework or anything, so my grades were pretty bad.
My grades are terrible. That's why I went to Bangor University.
You went to... I have friends that are at Bangor. That's hilarious.
Oh, welcome to the Failed Your A-Levels club.
See, I gamed my A-Levels. I really, so...
You bloody min-maxer.
No, it's what I did. I took 2 extra A-Levels, meaning that I could have got to uni, because I also play instruments and stuff, and you can get points via doing that. I had enough UCAS points to go to university as ABB standard. If I got straight E's, it was great.
Oh yeah, I had a similar sort of thing with what was called like the Welsh Baccalaureate. When I was doing it anyway, it was piss easy. You just get a bunch of teachers to sign off like on your Welsh Baccalaureate, and pow, you get a UCAS score of what essentially is an A level, like an A star at A level.
Yeah.
It was only accepted at Welsh universities, so it was just like that's it, banger, done.
The other thing I find very relatable about this dev diary is all of the new coping mechanisms you can develop to deal with stress in CK3, which is the one big thing I don't think they've talked about before. This was part of our hands-on when a few of us got to look at it. But yeah, you can develop habits like drinking, whoring, hitting yourself with a whip, eating lots of dessert, and those will help you lose stress faster at the penalty of usually a slight stat debuff.
See, originally I didn't really understand what a goat had to do with, liking to spend time in a brothel, but then I realized he's real horny. So it makes total sense.
And it's the phrase, Randy old goat,
Oh, yeah. I just keep thinking of Black Phillip whenever I look at that, though.
Black Phillip!
Yes. God, that's such a good movie.
It's so good.
Man, yeah.
The Lighthouse is really good. Same director. Well worth a watch.
Oh, I didn't even realize that was the same director.
Yeah. The Witch was his debut film, too. It's like, what a start to a career.
Yeah. So, they also showed off mental breaks, which are, when you reach certain stress thresholds, you can either develop a coping mechanism or maybe, I don't know, beat somebody to death, just the things we do to blow off steam in real life.
This domain of debauchery event just seems absolutely fantastic. I hope the other ones of this, like similar events like that, are of the same caliber as that debauchery event.
Domain of debauchery is such a great sentence. Like, I want to be a cleric. I want to be a cleric with the domain of debauchery. That
would be awesome. Yeah,
I concur.
That would be great.
That's a D&D line up ready.
You have like Dionysus or Bacchus as your patron god, and your domain is debauchery. Yeah, it'd be wonderful.
So essentially, you're the pimp cleric. That's
I see no problems with this whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope the Pope can do some similar stuff like that, and then you could probably have like proper problems with your your religious unity.
That's
Pope Innocentius, the very much not innocent.
Yeah.
That's why we're all stressed out in the modern world. It's been way too long since we had like a proper bacchanalia. Like we need to bring back the concept of the bacchanalia. You know,
we could do some Saturnalia as well. That might work as well.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of already do with our like winter holiday traditions. A lot of that is based on Saturnalia, but
but there's some very key points that are missing.
Valorgain in chat is now on an FBI watch list for saying "Be horny, my children,"
and you had to repeat it on the podcast.
So we're now all on an FBI watch list. Yeah.
Look, FBI, we were talking about the fact that you could pet dogs. I don't know how that relates. It just does. But look, you can pet dogs.
Listen,
you guys weren't already on the list?
Well, that's the thing. Anybody who's read my Twitter for like a day knows that if the FBI actually wanted to bring me in, they would already have plenty of evidence for it. So, you know,
I don't think Finland has an extradition thing with the US, so I think I'm okay. Hopefully, unless you become enough of a problem that they decide to invade Finland to make them. There's no oil here, mate. There's no oil here. We'll be all right.
A lot of lakes. Tried that as well.
Not many of them are black. Yeah.
That's true.
There was another really big power that just kind of decided we want this, and then the Finns were like, have a little bit of it and fuck off.
Well, Valorgain is now pointing out to the FBI that it's in a religious context, and that makes it okay. Yeah, that's...
God, I think we need to move on. Oh, God.
Okay. We'll scroll down a little bit more.
So not only have we got the FBI honest, we've got the Catholic Inquisition after us now.
Jesus.
Double whammy.
They showed off a trait that caused a lot of interest on Twitter. You can now become a stoner as a way of dealing with stress.
Yeah.
The hashishia, which I was saying, I hope there are events tied to this where you think you've had the greatest idea ever in history, and then you tell it to your steward the next day, and he points out that you're just describing the concept of taxes. Like that would be very much in line with my experience with that particular coping mechanism. So
I like how the trait is like
and watching documentaries.
So
I like how it says opinion of hashishia characters. It's like, just imagine that they called it weed, because everyone knows it's weed. Opinion of weed characters. It's basically what it's saying, which makes me giggle a bit.
It's hash oil, I guess, is more what they were doing, but it's the same plant. It's same brain chemicals. So
it's the same drug, isn't it?
I really hope there's a Pineapple Express achievement now.
Yeah.
I think on Twitter, I think TJ, you said it was like, what's a White Castle equivalent of?
Somebody in the thread mentioned that. Yeah. I was asking how you say.
That was
smoke
Zeke,
weed.
I think. Actually, Zeke said that.
Oh yeah, that was Zeke, who is now at former Paradox community manager, one of my favorite Paradox people. I think I've said on the show. He's at Raw Fury now, which is basically their hiring strategy, isn't he?
No, Zeke's off in teaching in Japan. It's Susie that's at Raw Fury.
I'm pretty sure Zeke followed her.
I think Zeke is at Raw Fury now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, I don't know.
Maybe Zeke is in chat to correct me, but I'm pretty sure he joined Raw Fury because their whole recruiting strategy is just to steal cool people from Paradox. It was started by David Martinez and Gordon Van Dyke, who used to both be Paradox people, and I think Bulla Berman, who was like one of Paradox's best PR people, is there now. It's all just Paradox people for the most part.
I think that's the strategy of a lot of companies, mind. Steal stuff from Paradox quite a lot.
Yeah. Anything else about this particular dev diary that stuck out to you guys?
Well, I think it just confirms our excitement about the fact that it's encouraging role playing your character traits a lot more. You know.
Yeah.
And these mental breaks are quite roleplay also, you know, so it feeds into that quite well.
The fact that, it encourages you to actually roleplay as your character instead of being like, well, my character is this, but I want to do this. And now there's going to be a consequence for doing the thing that you want to do instead of what your character wants to do. It's putting you more in your character's shoes, and I like that a lot. It's a role-play game and a grand strategy. Don't just ignore a part of it.
Yeah.
And I really
ahead.
like the fact that it's kind of, it's giving that air of, like, the thing I first thought of when I read all this was, with the mental breaks and stuff, was, oh, Lady Macbeth. It's giving that really sort of, there's a massive consequence that's gonna really screw up your mental status for doing some really bad things, but you still might do those really bad things, and then my head just, my actor brain turned on, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be so fun.
Yeah.
It's definitely got lots of Shakespearean vibes. It's very King Lear too, right? Isn't it? It's like,
yes,
it's so good.
yeah.
Well, and it's great because like it doesn't ever force you to act in a certain way. It just creates consequences, and I think that's the most interesting way to encourage people to play a game differently than they might have otherwise. Is create consequences. Don't force them. Don't railroad them. This applies to like running tabletop RPGs as well. Just create interesting consequences that they're going to have to deal with. Like, you really want to do that? All right. Well, you can. I'm not going to stop you, but there's going to be consequences. People that are
there's a cost to every action, just like there is in real life.
Yeah, people that are used to playing murder hobos, and then they play D&D when I'm running it, and it's like, okay, you're now wanted, not only by the town that you stole from, but also by the local duke, and he's sending his men out to look for you, so here you go. This is the next adventure, is dealing with the consequences of your shenanigans. So,
I only recently started playing D&D. I've only had like 2 sessions of it, and that sounds like somewhere I really want our campaign to go. So, that sounds awesome.
So
I'm also interested to see how this plays. I don't know if the decadence mechanic is still in play in Islam.
There's no decadence. The way Islam kind of works now is all of your vassals will expect to be married into the ruling dynasty. So like, you want to have lots of daughters so that you can marry them off to your vassals and keep the vassals happy. But then like, you're also generating claims for your vassals' kids, and that sort of causes this like tangled web of potential instabilities.
Very presumptuous of them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I do kind of miss the way in CK2 that a Muslim, like a big powerful Muslim realm, could kind of like disintegrate and be taken over by these like zealous tribal people, which is something that happened a lot throughout the early history of the Caliphate. So I hope they find some way to kind of bring that back around at some point, maybe when they do a Muslim expansion. Presumably there will be one sooner or later.
Speaking of Muslim expansion, it won't reach Vienna. Segue.
I don't even know.
It's the Austria patch.
That was such a bad segue. I didn't know what we were segueing into.
Look, I'm trying. I'm getting better at it, I hope. Maybe.
I still don't know what are we segueing into. What are we segueing into?
Well, I was going to go for EU4. It's the Austria patch, Muslim expansion. Muslim didn't expand into Vienna because the winged hussars arrived. It worked. It was great. You just didn't understand my genius.
The winged hussars arrived, but the understanding of your segue did not. So we got a fairly small EU4 update this week. It's the 1.30.2 patch. They did some tweaking to the cost for golden bulls and investigate heresy, which can now only be done by the Pope. And has much higher cost scaling than it did before, so you can't just like delay the Reformation until the 1600s, which we kind of saw in action in the Creator Colosseum as well.
We did,
Oh, excuse me.
Bloody Burgundy. Buying down all investigating heresy. That's not your job, mate. It's the Pope's job.
Yeah. They've also they've gotten rid of some exploits, like you can't have Golden Liberty and increased levies at the same time as Poland.
Yeah, that was pretty powerful.
Yeah, they nerfed Cossacks. They
because steppes were better than farmland, as far as I remember, with the Cossacks, right?
Right.
For death costs.
So I don't know if they've done anything to address I suppose we'll call them the Austria issues that exist right now, where you can like revoke the privilege by 1450 by like exploiting the AI's willingness to join the HRE, which I think they said on either Twitter or on a forum thread somewhere was a bug that like nations were ignoring the logic that they're supposed to follow for reluctance to join the HRE, where everyone was like, oh yeah, I have 150 relations with Austria. Just going to go ahead and click that join HRE button and not consider any other factors.
It was especially a problem with the Pope, which always seems to join the HRE,
the Pope has joined the HRE in literally every game of 1.30 I've played so far.
Yeah.
And
I was playing literally before this, and I just joined the HRE as the Knights. I'm doing a Knights run. But before then, Shadow Kingdom fired. All of Italy left the HRE. I attacked Florence, took Pisa. As soon as I took Pisa, everyone around me rejoined the HRE, so I couldn't expand. I was like,
it was actually better to take the option abandon Italy, because that would lead to more imperial authority in the long run, which is super counterintuitive. Yeah. They did tweak it a little bit.
Fixed. Yeah.
Princess
reverted mistake that made AI
5A.
ignore its logic for joining the HRE.
Got it.
So hopefully that I haven't tried to revoke by 1480 in the new patch, mostly because I haven't played as Austria yet. But yeah, hopefully that's fixed. That was quite a huge thing.
And
but for the people who have done it already, enjoy your easy world conquest.
That huge vassal swarm you get is just...
Also, AI understands now better how loyalty of estates will impact them if they seize land from them, which should hopefully prevent there from being a noble revolt in every single country on the 12th of November, 1444. It used to be like you hit on pause and noble rebels everywhere, because every nation revoked estate land without understanding what that would actually do. So
it has quite a rough time, this launch on Steam. I don't know if you saw that. It's got mixed reviews at the moment, which I found quite...
Yeah.
I think it's down to the balancing and the bugs.
Yeah.
Because mechanically, I think this DLC is up there with the best that EU4 has.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't think it deserves the amount of...
it's getting... I think it's gotten disproportionate flack for how many exploits there were, but and I said this on my last stream too, just the 1.30 patch, the version of it that was there on launch day, it's had some issues, but if you as the player weren't deliberately trying to exploit the new mechanics, it kind of worked fine. There was some weird stuff with the Pope being too eager to join the HRE, and certain other bordering nations were too eager to join the HRE, which was definitely annoying, and I think that's a valid complaint. But most of the stuff people are complaining about with 1.30, when I look at Steam reviews or if I look at the forums or Reddit, it seems like it's stuff that you as the player kind of have to go out of your way to break the game for it to even be an issue. Which for me is as a mostly kind of a role play player, that's not really that big of a deal. I'm not going to try to break the game, so this is never going to come up for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely has some wonkiness. Going back to the game I'm currently playing, Aragon is in the HRE, but they've been PU'd by Castile, who aren't, and it's all a bit weird there as well. But yeah, I agree. This has been one of the best EU4 DLCs, at least in the time that I've been playing EU4. I think I started playing EU4 at... I can't remember which one came first. Cossacks or Art of War?
Art of War came out first.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
think it was around just before Art of War that I started playing, and then now it's. I think this is probably one of I think this has been the best DLC for me since I've been playing.
I started before Art of War, so I would put Art of War ahead of it. But I would honestly put Emperor second mechanically, not balance-wise. I don't give a good shit about that. That's balance changes will occur, patches will come out to fix the problems. That's going to be the case with every DLC ever released for any game ever. Mechanically speaking, it's a really good DLC.
Yeah, I'm looking through the DLCs now and looking at it. Maybe it's just a pattern in EU4 DLCs, but they all seem to have mixed reviews. So I don't know if that's just a problem with the Steam reviewing system or if it's...
I think there's a lot of people thinking along the lines of, oh, another DLC, Paradox, milk, blah, blah, blah. I see that a lot. And it's really quite annoying. But I think that's got to be a part of it as well. People will just not recommend Paradox DLCs for the fact that they are releasing DLCs.
Yeah. And as Valorgain points out in chat, when it comes to stuff like Steam reviews, people who are mad are much more likely to leave a review than people who are just playing the game and having a great time and, don't even look at the store page because they're too busy playing the game. So, disproportionately, and I do think some of the concerns they have are valid. I think there's a perception that you worked on this for over a year. Why is it not perfect? Which is a little bit unfair, but I can at least see where people, got that idea from. It does seem like some of this stuff, if they had so long to test it, maybe should have been worked out ahead of time. But it's
that's true of a lot of things too, mate. It's like Bannerlord is far from a perfect game, and how long's that been in development for?
Yeah, well, I think we discussed before that the version of Bannerlord we're actually playing now was probably in development for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So.
I suppose development time doesn't always relate to quality. I mean, look at what's it called, Duke Nukem Forever, which is probably one of the worst games that has ever been made. Absolutely awful game, and that was in development for forever. That was a running joke for a long time.
Yeah.
And also, you've got to think as well, with, say, EU4 and the multitude of DLC that there is, no one really buys in the latest DLC as their first DLC. So a lot of the people that will be picking this up and enjoying it, who won't they won't even read the reviews because, it's just the next thing that they're buying for EU4.
Yeah.
It's there's that.
Right. Yeah.
They've got that new subscription system too, which I think will help a lot.
Yeah, have they actually mentioned rolling that out? Because I know they're still doing some kind of A/B testing with it where select users can opt into the subscription model, but I don't know if they've said anything about officially we've made a decision on how this is going to work yet.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it yet, no.
Yeah, so...
I still think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I have right now, when I log into EU4, it gives me the option to sign up for the subscription. I already own all the DLC, so it doesn't make sense for me, but I'm wondering...
Yeah, I get that.
Maybe we can have someone on... I'll find somebody we can actually bring on the show who can talk more about what data have you guys collected regarding this? What are your feelings about where it's going to go? I'll poke Paradox PR about that and see who might be able to speak to that intelligently.
So what are you allowed to say?
Chat says they have a subscription, so maybe it has been rolled out.
But yeah, I know. I know select users can opt into it now. I just don't know if they've officially rolled it out for everybody yet.
Got you. I see.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking on the store page, the DLC for EU4, there is quite a lot of it. God, how do you get back to this? There's quite a lot of it, and to get it all is €300 or some such like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of understandable why a subscription where you pay however much it is a month and you get all of it, it is a pretty damn good idea. Yeah, 367. And apparently there's 4 things I don't have. I will rectify that.
What I have been mentioning to people lately when they ask me about these games is subscribe to Humble Bundle. Full disclosure, Humble Bundle is owned by the same parent company as IGN, who I freelance for. So if you want to invent some conspiracy theory about me being a Humble Bundle shill, feel free to do that, but they do not pay me enough to do that. I can assure you. But that seems to have been the best value I've ever seen for getting Paradox DLC is when they have a Humble Bundle up. I think at one point you could get like all of the DLC for Crusader Kings 2 for like $15-20 or something like that. So
they've done a couple for EU4 as well. They did the first Humble Bundle I saw for it gave you all of the major content DLCs, and then another one later on was all of the minor like content packs and skins and music and stuff. So you could get the entire game for like 30-40 quid.
I think I think they're doing stuff now, right? As part of the Black Lives Matter thing. There's a Humble Bundle. I think Paradox is in that now. I don't know if it's
Age of Wonders 3 is in that bundle. I'm not sure if EU4 is.
Yeah, I don't think it's like up to date PDS stuff. There is some Paradox stuff in there from like the publishing side. But I don't recall seeing like any like recent Paradox development studio games in there when I looked at it.
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah, so it's Surviving Mars and Age of Wonders, which are Paradox games, but it doesn't have Grand Strategy by the looks of it.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, it's got Baba Is You in it. That's a very good game.
It's a really good deal. I mean, this isn't like specifically tied to the topic of the podcast, but man, this is one of the best bundles I've ever seen in terms of the amount of stuff you get for $30. It's got like System Shock 2 in there. It's got Kingdom. It's got
Darkest Dungeon.
A bunch of ebooks.
Jackbox is great.
Yeah, Jackbox is great.
Right.
It's got Broken Age, which is a bit of a stinker, in my opinion.
I didn't actually play it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's a really good deal. What were we were talking about EU4 at one point. We'll loop back around to that because we do want to talk to Midgeman a little bit about running the Creator Coliseum. But before that, we do have an Imperator Dev Diary about some major changes that are coming to the Diata Key Wars, which I'm pretty psyched about.
There's two things, right, that I would like to critique you on right there. One, you missed the segue of Colosseum. Secondly, how did you just pronounce Diadochi? Diadochi? What did you just say?
Diadochi, I think, is how I've been saying it.
I don't know if I'm correct, but I call it Diadochi. I've never heard anyone say it like you just did.
I said Diadochi. All right.
Well, we need somebody. We need somebody who speaks
ancient Greek.
Was it Attic Greek that was spoken at this time? I know there's like several standards for like studying ancient Greek.
Diadochi, I would probably say if I didn't.
I said Diadochi. Do we have any classics majors in the audience?
Yeah. Okay. So ancient Greek. There's a bunch of different dialects. I think. Yeah,
Attic wouldn't be in right now because this is all of the major characters of all the Diadochi are Macedonian, other than Lysimachus. So maybe he speaks Attic Greek. I know he's a Hellen. I don't know exactly which one he's from though. But all the rest of them are Macedonian.
The list I'm looking at, apparently Lesbian Greek is an officially recognized dialect. So
yeah, from Lesbos, the island.
Which is funny because I actually read an article that like the people who live on the Isle of Lesbos have been petitioning to get the name changed for like gay women because they believe they're the original lesbians, and now they want to have like their term of residence.
Should be the other way around.
Oh god. Well, I mean, there's other names for the Isle of Lesbos, like Lesvos. You can be the Lesvosians.
Well, sounds cool. I mean, too. We could use the phrase sapphic, but that also has a slightly different meaning than lesbian. So
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, Saphians. I don't know. That's probably not going to happen because I don't think the Isle of Lesbos has that kind of cultural.
I like the idea of an island suing like every lesbian in the world or something. It's just absolutely mad.
They should just rename themselves to Themyscira. Let's be fair.
The great court case of lesbians versus lesbians.
Yeah. Anyway, so this dev diary is all about the wars of the insert however you want to pronounce that word. I think I tend to say Diadochi. Diadochi is also,
I'm not saying you're wrong, it's just I've never heard anyone say it like that and it caught me off guard.
I am
It's
saying
not something you
you're
hear down
wrong.
the pub very often, is it, really?
No, that's fair. That's fair.
So, Lambert, as our main Imperator expert, why don't you walk us through this dev diary and the changes that are happening?
Well, it's not just about the Diadochi. Oh my god, you've got me. Oh my.
I did.
It's not only about the successors.
That's what being an influencer means.
It's not only about the successors. The dev diary is about like a whole myriad of different things. So first off, we do have the Diadochi who have a new CB that they can use, the Legacy of Alexander, which would be a superiority war. So, war score from battles. And if, when you're going to peace out, usually superiority wars mean that provinces are much more expensive to take. But with this CB, they'll be much cheaper. And that CB lasts until the the Diadochi die, or in the case of the Antigonid Kingdom, until the heir dies, which is usually Demetrius. So that's going to really help for the Diadochi. They're pushing more flavor towards them, because other than Rome v Carthage with the Punic Wars, the Wars of the Diadochi are the other big set piece thing that happens in this time frame, and that lasts for quite some time. Yeah. So it's great to get that.
And as Arheo promised us, Phrygia is no longer called Phrygia. It is now the Antigonid Kingdom.
Yes, which is going to please an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
I don't see too many people liking the name Phrygia.
No.
It was the name of Antigonus's satrapy. But no one refers to it as that.
No, I've never opened a history book and seen that state called Phrygia. It's always Antigonids usually. So
I would have personally gone with Antigonia, but this works just fine. The only thing I'm wondering is, when you rank up to Empire rank, will it rename you to Antigonid Empire? I really hope it does.
He did say when he was on the podcast that there are several different names that it can be called. So that wouldn't surprise me. I personally don't like the naming everything as if it were a sedentary state. I really don't like that all of the Germanic tribes are named Herulia and stuff like that. I would rather they be the Heruls or the Herulii or the Herulian, like Herulians. I would rather have, especially nomadic tags, be named for the people and not this is Herulia, the kingdom of the Herulians. No, I want my tribal names back.
Led by Zelda by any chance?
That sort of thing.
I couldn't hear that because you were both talking at the same time.
Well, I made a joke about Zelda, so it was completely off topic.
This is now a Legend of Zelda fan podcast.
Shit, I'm going to have to play them then, aren't I? I've never played a Zelda game.
Never played Zelda?
You've never played a Zelda game?
No, never played them. I guess I've missed out. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. Banned from this new Zelda podcast.
Yeah, so they're adding
there is a Total War mod for Zelda. I think it's Hyrule Total War, so technically it's on brand still.
Well, there you
go. I'm
go.
gonna have to keep it a go then. Some more flavor events as well, like the Cappadocian Revolt, which was technically in the previous versions, but it was nothing happened, nothing resulted in it. Whereas now Cappadocia can become a tributary of Armenia, and you can, if you're playing as the Antigonids, you can either say, "Oh, I'm too busy fighting the rest of Alexander's generals to bother with this," or you could say, "No, we're keeping you," and then they both declare war on you, or you declare war on them, actually. So it's just adding more flavor to this huge set-piece war, which is also pretty damn cool. As well, definitely. We've got Thrace having a new way to get into the war rather than being pulled in by Macedon. Historically, Lysimachus and Seleucus were like the big winners in the Wars of the Diadochi. Thrace is like the weakest at game start, and he becomes like, he becomes like the third strongest. But that's just because Seleucus and Ptolemy were so immensely powerful. And then Macedon got took over by Demetrius.
Ptolemies could just be like, screw all you guys, we don't want any part in this.
Ptolemy can say no now, which is it's good for him. Ptolemy is a bit of a dick, so he can just sit alone down there in the Nile, being a bellend that doesn't want to get involved. I don't like Ptolemy. A lot of the Wars of Diadochi were his fault for demanding southern Syria when he'd already made a deal with Seleucus that they would, this is where the border will be, and Ptolemy was like, no, I actually want to put it up here. So that's where a lot of the wars came from. So it's his fault. He's dead. There's also changes to a bunch of things like settlements no longer having a desired ratio of 100% slaves, which was, to me, like really annoying, especially when you wanted to colonize just one little territory that had become uncolonized due to maybe being sieged or whatever. All of the places around it had 100% slaves, so you couldn't colonize it. Now there's going to be a mix of freemen and slaves in all territories, unless there's buildings involved. We don't know exactly how the buildings are going to affect it. Hopefully, it's not going to result in 100% of any one pop type. Just make the world a bit more flavorful. So that's good for territories.
Right. Yeah.
This is a big dev. There's a lot of like very individual things going on. So we're like maybe only halfway through. It's the biggest dev diary of the week, I would say, just for the amount of different things it goes into.
It's the only dev diary of the week. You mean of all of the dev diaries that Paradox released? I thought you were saying it was the biggest Imperator dev diary of the week. Well, clearly. Yes.
Oh no, I'm just remembering back to 1.2 Cicero, when it was like every couple of days Johan would be like, "Oh, I'm going to change this, and here's a big post about it." Then, oh my god, the podcast would be full of Imperator back then.
Yeah. So they've changed it so it's like giving noble rights when you already have citizen rights actually has a penalty now, which seemed kind of weird. Like, why wouldn't you give everybody noble rights if it doesn't do anything? Like, just to keep them happy. But
previously it was why stop at citizens.
Right.
So nobles will now give you a little bit less happiness again on top of what they would get from getting citizen rights. So you're just going to have to be a lot more selective with who you give your rights to, which today's day and age is not something I really wanted to say, but back then, totally legitimate and fine. And it's also going to be like very different on
Lambert comes out as pro-Roman racism.
Well, they're also making some pretty big changes to stability, where it'll actually affect pop happiness now, which seems like they kind of needed to do since changes. Revolts have changed. Yeah. Before it was we have 0% stability. This is fine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was fine, but it is definitely changed. Stability used to affect things like the level at which your country would experience a revolt or a civil war. Both of those have now been changed away from stability. Revolt risk is now its whole entire thing, which we went through on a previous podcast. It's based on provincial loyalty, which is mostly affected by happiness, which is then affected by stability, so it sort of is. Anyway,
Right.
and the civil wars are mostly based on your tyranny level. Aggressive expansion's also got a big change as well. Having aggressive expansion makes your stability tick down, and this has been kind of the biggest controversial part of the dev diary. There's quite a few people that don't like the numbers, basically, of how much of a ticking modifier to stability aggressive expansion will give you. I think I can see it here. Yeah, aggressive expansion of almost 10 will lower your stability by 0.1 every month, which does seem a little bit excessive. But I'm just kind of like, the amount of stability you get in the game right now, it's kind of abundant, so yeah. I think it'd be okay.
I rarely, unless I am playing a migrating tribe, I usually don't have trouble keeping my stability like above like 60% at almost all times, or at least ticking up to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's oftentimes I don't even need to stab pigs in the head, and my stability is totally fine. It's mostly down to the optional queued events. I think there's a lot of events that fire there that give you, oh, you pay 18 ducats here, have 6 stability. Like just things like that. There's a lot of those if you sort your government out properly. Because those come up more often when you've got high statesmanship in your people. So I do think there's too much stability at the moment. I think this will definitely alleviate that issue. And now with stability affecting pop happiness, your pops are going to be a little bit less happy. I mean, happiness has been completely overhauled. It's a completely different system. So I'm quite excited to try that out.
Right. I'm also curious how these tyranny changes are going to affect. So one thing I've loved about Imperator since they implemented the current tyranny system is how viable it is to play a high tyranny country. Like, it seems like something that would just be bad, like, based on the word tyranny, but actually, like, there are strategies where having high tyranny is just really, really good. In the current version. And so I'm wondering now that it, like, decreases the threshold for power base for disloyal characters to start a civil war and things like that. It increases the chance that cohorts become loyal. Like, it kind of seems like tyranny is going to set you on the path to civil war a lot more than it did previously. So I'm wondering if that will significantly affect the viability of just high tyranny runs. Because sometimes I'm just like, yeah, let it. Here's an event option that gives me some tyranny. Let's take that. I like productive slaves.
The biggest thing about tyranny in the current version is that it increases the assimilation rate. So foreign cultures will become your culture more quickly if you are a tyrant. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore, just going by the tooltip, which also got quite a few people quite worried. Also, it used to lower the loyalty only of generals and governors, and now it does all your characters and increases the threshold or lowers the threshold for a civil war to fire. It's going to be very dangerous to be a very tyrannical nation, which also makes me think, how in the fuck are we going to become kingdoms or dictatorships as republics now? Because it was already really, really bloody hard. Like, there's been times where I'm playing a republic and I'm trying to go for this dictatorship because I want to flip to a monarchy, and I'm at 100 tyranny with a tyrant that rules for life or a dictator that rules for life as my ruler, and it won't let me flip because I don't have, I think, 70 populist support in the Senate. If I'm at 100 tyranny in this next patch, I'm suffering a civil war straight up. That it's going to happen
instantly. Yeah.
I would be very happy if, as a result of the way to become a dictatorship in the future, would be to actually let that civil war fire and win it, and then you can choose to become a monarchy or fix the republic. I want to see that.
That would be great.
I want to see
Yeah,
the
that
Civil
would be
War
great.
has to fire for you to change government type. I'd love that.
That I would really like that. Like that, yeah, that would be awesome.
Have a proper Caesar crossing the Rubicon mechanic.
Right.
Exactly.
Or to make it so that like a peaceful change of power is so absurdly difficult that you would rather just do the Civil War. like make that the more attractive option. Yeah.
Fewer people will die if we just get this over with.
Yeah. Well, they've also, tying directly into that, they've kind of changed how Senate support, you don't just get locked out of being able to do anything if your Senate support is too low. It's just that you accumulate more tyranny if your Senate support is low and you want to take an action that they disapprove of, which, I mean, that makes sense to me.
And it is quite a lot of tyranny as well.
Yeah. So
we've got the picture here: 7.38 tyranny from 40, from being just less than one below 50%.
Yeah,
it's quite significant. I don't know the exact maths on that. I know Flopsy, one of the Mayo and Texas developers, wrote out what he thought the math could be, and I mean, I didn't math it out, so I don't know if he's right or not. But I'm going to just assume that whatever he said was correct. So I don't know. It just seems like quite a lot of tyranny.
But then if you want to play low tyranny, it actually makes sense now to maximize your Senate support, because before it was kind of like, as long as it's above 50, we're good. But now you also get passive reduction for how high it is. So if you want to be like a good Republican and obey the will of the Senate, you will get some extra benefit from that. So yeah.
And I don't know if this is finally, but also forts are now going to reduce unrest, which is nice.
Makes sense.
It is going to make a lot of, if you're a very wealthy nation, like, I don't know, maybe for instance, you're going for world conquest, you're going to have an awful lot of money because you own an awful lot of land. You're going to be able to afford just putting a fort down in every province.
Yeah.
And I think that might be the way to do those kind of runs in future. Every fort lowers it by 0.25, I think. At least it looks like it from here, because you're getting 0.5 reduction. There's 2 forts that I can see. So yeah, it's fine. I mean, they are increasing the cost of forts as well, which is less fine, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Don't quite make much sense to me, because thinking of all the walled cities that were very prone to civil unrest.
Yeah.
Cough, Constantinople, cough.
Well, the other part of it that I think is even more interesting than forts reducing unrest is the fact that assigning troops to your governors will actually reduce the unrest across their entire governorship. Yeah. Which kind of feeds into, but then what if they get funny ideas? Like,
yeah, which they would. That does increase their power base as well.
Imperator, I think, in the long run, is going to continue to benefit from a design philosophy of encourage the player to do things that will potentially set them on the path to civil war.
Yes.
And this whole, like, troops directly owned by the governor reduce unrest across their entire governorate is exactly the kind of change that I think, positive change that I see as supporting that design goal. So,
yeah.
And then finally, they're showing us about the sort of, I wouldn't say subcultures, but like the cultural richness of the world, instead of just having, here's where the Etruscans are. There are only Etruscans here, and they're nowhere else, and no one else is here. That's absolutely not the case. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if you can see the screen, but in the first screenshot, here's Etruscans. They're in this sort of like Latium-sized area just north of Rome. But if you go to the screen where it shows like where the Etruscans actually are, they're over quite a bit of northern Italy.
Yeah,
which is,
especially
I think,
in the ancient
cool.
world, you just did not usually have situations where it's like, I'm going to cross the river, and now 100% of the people speak a different language from what it was back on the other side. Like,
depends how big the river was. I can expect that on the Danube, but not so much just a couple of hills, for sure. Well, the Rubicon was not big enough to prevent language barriers.
Yeah, well, and I mean, even in cases like that, like, we don't really even know, like, linguistically, like, the Belgae, like, were they Celtic? Were they Germanic? Were they some mix of the two? We're not really sure. So, you know, the Cimbri, they might have been a confederation of people that spoke a whole bunch of different languages. Yeah, like, we do tend to naturally, a lot of times unconsciously, transpose modern ideas of nationalism onto historical periods, but that could be a whole show by itself. And I want to make sure
a lot of times
that
we just sort of go with, oh, the Romans said this about them. Okay, we'll go with that. When the Romans didn't really take the time to really understand the tribes they came across, they just saw another enemy or another route for a defensive war to expand.
Oh, this Woden guy sounds a lot like Mercury. We're just going to call him Mercury. Basically Mercury, right? Yeah. So, but I do want to make sure we have time to ask our guest this week about the Creator Coliseum, which you've already kind of heard our testimonials as players from. Midgeman, I wanted to ask you, how did you get this idea, and how do you go about putting something like this together? It's such a kind of a daunting undertaking, it seems like.
Okay, yeah. So the Creator Coliseum is actually the one that we've just had. Is technically its kind of second outing. The first time that I got a large group of people together was for actually Imperator's pre-release. Amber, were you in that game?
I was. I played as the Helveti, I believe.
Yeah, and it was good. We grouped people into their different cultures. I was playing that game, and Mordred Viking was our commentator for that. And that was the first time, and it kind of went from there. But the whole Creator Coliseum idea is something I've been toying with, like, back of my mind for ages. And then the opportunity kind of came about. Again, Mordred is kind of the force behind how this happened, in the fact that I was, since Emperor was released, I was talking about it on Twitter, and I'm really good friends with Ben, who is obviously the social media guy now behind EU4, so we talk about EU4 a lot, and I've been going, I'm going to get a game together, and loads of people were asking, you going to get a game together? Yeah, okay, are you going to get a game together? I was, well, I've got to get a game together now. And then I messaged Mordred to see if he wanted to commentate. Again, like he did for the Imperator game, sorry. Oh my gosh, I still have that problem. I keep going Emperor game, Imperator game, Emperor game, Imperator
I had the exact same problem writing the show notes for this episode, yeah.
and then he goes, oh yeah, speak to Grugi, because Grugi's also trying to organize a game. I went, oh, okay. And my first real contact with Grugi was this most recent PDXCon in Berlin, where I put him through absolute stress during the live-action CK2 roleplay game thing that they did.
Yeah. That looked really fun.
If anyone knows my story about that, that was insane. But I offered to buy him a drink afterwards, and yeah, me and Grugi actually got very drunk on gin and tonic. Well, at least I did. I got very drunk on gin and tonic in the Paradox Staff Hotel. So it progressed there. I messaged him. He already had some players together. I already had some players together. And then basically Grugi, a lot of it was Grugi in terms of the organizing a lot of the players. He got everyone together. He assigned all the nations pretty much. And I just went, well, I'm going to go sort out some advertising then, because this could be really fun. And then we had the thing of quite a few people wanted to commentate, but they wanted to play more. So I went, well, I won't play and I'll commentate then. It'll make it fair. Also, therefore, one of us two that are organising it can be like sat out and make rulings if needed be. And then I just booted up After Effects, put a couple of things together, spelt them all incorrectly, booted up After Effects again. Unfortunately, the spelling mistakes didn't happen until, after I'd already started publishing all of the art assets, but nobody, and a big shout out to a different content creator by the name of Hadrian for realizing that I'd misspelt the word Colosseum. And it just went from there, and it in the week that, because it was basically me and Krugi had 2 different groups, and then we finally put them together. And then from there, those groups kind of went, I've got some other people that might be interested in playing, and it ended up as 30-odd plus content creators, and it got to a point where we were like, okay, we need to stop admitting content creators. This is insane. And before the Creative Coliseum, I actually only had 30 minutes of playtime in the DLC because of how much organization ended up going into it. I was like, I've got to make 4 new country flags. Okay, let's go. Photoshop. But no, it was great fun, and the most rewarding thing about the whole thing was how much the rest of the content creators enjoyed playing the game is in terms of what I've got back from feedback, and then how much a lot of the audiences loved it. Like, I was streaming today, and I had someone come in, and they were like, hey, just want to say thank you for organizing that event the other week. I had really a lot of fun watching it. And I was just like, man, that's what you want to hear for an event. And
absolutely, yeah.
That's So yeah, it kind of started with an Imperator Rome event, but that event was hell because we had a lot of issues with Imperator Rome on release day because it wasn't the most stable for multiplayer with 20 people.
The problem was getting the right checksum as well.
Yes,
that was a pain.
Yeah, that was. But yeah, no, the EU4 one thankfully went out without a hitch, really, and it was a lot of fun.
All you whippersnappers don't remember having to deal with the meta server. Anybody who's been around long enough in Paradox multiplayer to remember the meta server.
It was grim. Bloody hell. I'd rather use Hamachi. Mind you, back then Hamachi was not awful. It was bad. Don't get me wrong, but it was not as bad as it is nowadays.
And Victoria 2. If anybody's ever tried to do Victoria 2 multiplayer, just like, if you think the desyncs are bad now, go load up Victoria 2 and try to see how far you can get. That should be an achievement. Is like, make it 100 years in Victoria 2 multiplayer without a desync.
And back then, Victoria 2 was considered one of the more stable ones. Multiplayer 2.
Yeah, it wasn't even the worst.
I think EU3 was particularly bad.
Yeah.
I remember just after Divine Wind came out too, the desyncs of that were atrocious.
I definitely, with the amount of excitement around like this event and like the amount of people who wanted to participate, it kind of seems like we're in a little bit of a golden age for what we do, right? Like, it's like a lot of people are stuck at home. A lot of new people are trying streaming for the first time. A lot of people are seeking out streaming stuff because, they can't go anywhere. You can't go to a movie. Some places, the bars and the pubs are opening back up at this point. But it seems like I've seen kind of an explosion in, interest and like people starting channels that didn't have one previously.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, have you guys seen the same thing?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And another thing that I've noticed is especially with EU4, this most recent DLC, since the event, I've been looking at the numbers of people and creators, streaming it. And people that would have normally been 3 viewers probably 3 weeks before were on like 60 viewers. And there is a massive boom for it right now. And it's lovely and insane to see. And so many people are just getting so much love for content creation, either as creators or viewers going to watch people. Like, I found myself just watching this guy. I think he's clearly a uni student, like just streaming from his bedroom, and he had like 50 odd viewers, and it was, I think, one of his first ever streams, and it was like, great, this is amazing. This is what this is about. This is the new EU4 DLC, and it's just booming for people. And that's just my limited experience in looking at it for EU4, but like, as you've said that, I've just looked over to the left of me to see all my followed channels that are online and friends, and it's an insane number of people. It's really, and it's good, and it really is, and it's really invigorating the industry, and grand strategy in itself as well. I think has seen a massive uptick in viewership and also probably playership in this time. People probably finally have time to complete a game of Civilization.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's great, and like, yeah, and I think the Creative Coliseum as well as a thing, it's unbelievable that actually we got that many content creators for 2 days for such a massive event. It was...
Yeah, because it was quite a big time commitment, but everyone was pretty eager, I think.
Yeah, and the shock of it didn't like sort of wear off until about Thursday, the week after. I was still like, I don't know what just happened there. That was wow. Okay, cool.
Originally, when I was asked by Groogy, or I saw him ping his Discord about setting up a multiplayer, I was like, oh, the times are awful for me. And then as soon as I saw just how big this thing was going to be, I was like, Linda, that's my wife. So there's this event that's going on. Everyone's streaming. There's going to be quite a lot of people and a lot of big content creators. And she's like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll take care of the kid. Just do it. This is going to be great for you, so do it. And it was great for me. Got so many subs and views and love and all that shit from it. So, and also quite a lot of Polish people jumped into my channel for the first time, which was interesting.
That's something I really would. There's one thing I really liked about it that I didn't realize we had done until after the event. Was the cross language barrier promotion from that was insane, and the cross world promotion of it.
I don't know how many of them stayed. Just going to say that. I don't know how many of them stayed. Well, they were not happy with me.
Well, yeah, that is one thing I've noticed definitely when I'm playing, especially as like a country that like is not like super well represented in popular culture. Like I remember when I did an Ayat Haya series in EU4 after Mandate of Heaven came out. We did the Great Southern Dynasty where we started as Ayat Haya and claimed the Mandate of Heaven, and it was one of the most fun EU4 games I've ever played. You know, you have tons of people in the comments who are like, hey, I'm from Thailand. Thank you for, playing as the country I'm from. We don't get, a lot of, hype on the internet and in the strategy gaming community usually. Yeah. And like, I love seeing stuff like that, if I play.
I remember the first big spike in views for my channel when I first started was when I did a game of EU4 as Hungary. I had so many Hungarians coming in with, giving me tons and tons of views, purely because I was playing Hungary and no one else had. It was strange as well because it was when the patch was literally the Hungary patch. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do a game as Hungary. There's a really nice loading screen that I can use for the thumbnail, and that series just blew up for me. When I
did a CK2 run reforming the Romuva faith, I actually had somebody who was in the comments on like every episode who like is an actual like real Baltic like follower of Baltic paganism and was giving me all of this like historical info. It was like super
I love that.
Useful for like RP purposes because it's like, I don't know the first thing about Baltic paganism except for what the description says in CK2 when you hover over the little leaf. So,
I was like with Hearts of Iron 4. It's like I was the first person to play Finland. So for about a year and a half of my YouTube channel, the third biggest audience for my YouTube channel, it went United States, United Kingdom, Finland, and I was like, great.
I bet your comments were full of Tarilla Tavatarn.
Yeah, it was. Of course it was. I think there was even a month in about 2017 where Finnish overtook the UK in terms of my viewership.
Wow.
Yeah. Whenever Finland is mentioned anywhere, it's Tarilla Tavatarn in the comments every time.
I'm guessing it was a really cold winter or something. It was just like no one could go out because I had no idea why they were watching my channel. But like back to
It's Finland. It's always cold in the winter.
I also seeing a lot of people outside the Creative Coliseum, outside of everything, doing well in their own language streams more so than normal. Like, there's a creator that I've known since I've started this. I won't name drop or anything because but it's just someone I keep tabs with a long time, and his normal viewership count. He does it completely hobby. Normal viewership counts about 3 to 5. People, but he still does it, and he's been doing it for almost as long as I have. I saw a stream. He was in my followed channels the other day. He was playing EU4, and he had 400 people watching him. because he was in his own. He was in his own language.
This
Turkish.
is.
And I was like, that's insane. I'm so proud of that person. But it also shows how much, I think that was a lot of why the Content Creator Coliseum did well. The Creator Coliseum did so well is because it was technically available in multiple languages. And I had no idea that that was the case until much later. And I was like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
No, I mean, like, pro tip, seriously, if you speak a language that is not English, that is a huge opportunity. And I've heard this from developers, I've heard this from PR people, I've heard this from other like successful content creators. Like, there is a lot more demand than you might realize for like gaming let's play content in languages that are not English. And the developers who know what they're doing want to support it, because obviously it increases their reach in, other markets where they might not be as well known. Like if you're out there and you speak another language than English, or if your primary language is not English and you've thought about streaming games in another language or in your native language, go for it, because I can almost guarantee that like if you have good production values and you're an entertaining person, you can find probably more success than you think doing that. And there are developers who will be very supportive of it.
Absolutely.
That reminds me a bit of the Stellaris multiplayer event that Paradox set up. We were all doing roleplay stuff, and there was a French streamer, Niku, who I believe actually works for Paradox as one of their ambassadors. Maybe on CK, though I'm not sure exactly.
CK3 ambassador. Yeah.
There it is, yeah. He's French.
I've emailed him this week, so yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
And so because he would be streaming in his own language, his role play was to be the xenophobic isolationists. I forget what the term for it is. The ones that think they're superior in all things, and they don't want to talk to anyone else because they're superior.
Oh, isolationists.
And that was his role play, purely because he was the only one that was streaming in a different language, and it was a lot of fun. It was fantastic. He did a fantastic job. Inward Perfection, that's the one.
Inward Perfection, that's it.
Yeah.
It just worked out so well.
You hit a sort of another nail on the head as well with a little subtle thing you said with that second language idea, though, which was production value. And that's something I've started as a creator, tried to like perfect with my streams, and it's something I tried. And the Creator Coliseum was a great test for that. So I think you guys, because you all three of you were involved at some point, I think you saw the asset pack that I kind of made up for it.
It was really good.
Access.
I got to applaud that asset pack for sure.
Because it's something I think it's a good tip if you're a content creator or want to be a content creator out there now, spending some time on some assets. Like the amount of comments post the event that I got of like, those scene transitions were so professional, and it was like that was an hour in After Effects. Like all of the logo and everything. I think about 4 weeks back, I made a pre-generation for another thing that I did. I just what's it called? What's the term? Oh no. Where it automatically generates stuff for you. What's that term?
That could be
I know
a
what
lot
you're
of term.
Talking about.
It's the same, like where it's like world maps and stuff are like randomly generated. There's a specific term for it.
Procedurally generated.
Procedurally generated. That's the one. That is exactly what I'm thinking of. So it's basically a procedurally generated template which you just adapt by putting. I won't go into the technical things, but it was that, and it took me about 10 hours totally to produce all of the stuff that I did, and then that's including creating a procedural generation template thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like at the end of that week, basically, I felt like my time paid off, and I had so many comments, and it was also really nice for people to say, yo, that production value was like really, really cool. Like I thought that was really professional. I was like, I have just been looking at a screen, spelling things wrong for the last 4 days, and that means so much to me. But it's a massive tip, especially going into, if you want to be a creator right now, like that should be something you look to do, because it's going back to this whole, yes, it's a boom time right now for us all, and it's amazing, but you want to be as individual as possible, especially once the world situation maybe changes again.
Yeah.
Goes maybe back to what it is.
As soon as those pubs open, I'm abandoning all those streamers I've been watching.
Yeah, exactly.
You're on your own.
Okay, all right, I get it. I'll buy some lights. You're not the first person to say it. Making auto adjust brightness on my webcam either makes me look like a ghost or like complete dark black hole of darkness. Yeah. I will buy some lights and I will get some static settings that work.
Oh man, if I ever did streaming, I think buying lights would lower my production quality. Why is Baron Harkonnen doing some streams now? What's going on there?
Yeah, no, I mean it is significant. Like any little thing you can do to like set yourself apart, to differentiate yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I do that by doing a lot of Imperator. There's not a whole lot of us.
Right. Yeah. So before we get out of here for the day, Midgeman, since you're the guest, what have you been up to lately in your personal time, and where can people go to find your stuff?
So if you want to check my streams out, you can find me at twitch.tv/Midgeman. You can also find me on YouTube /The Midgeman's World, although I haven't posted there in a while. I'm mainly trying to switch my focus to streaming. I'm just enjoying it a lot more. Yeah. Or you can find me at many social medias. I'm at Midgeman Games on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram and all the sorts of things there. But yeah, free time has mainly been gaming because my normal career as an actor is completely dead right now because the arts industry has basically stopped. So now I am fulfilling what I live with my parents at the moment, so I pay them rent a month, which I call my hermit permit, and I am now fully hermit permit inside my office. Like, games are my thing right now, so yeah, you can catch me there.
Nice.
Oh, and if you enjoyed the Creator Coliseum, keep a nose out. There is more events on the way for sure.
Yeah, I was about to ask that. We should definitely do, more Coliseums in the future.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. You need to set up a CK3 one. I'm just going to trust that you're going to do that, and I want in.
Yeah, that's 100% on the cards. I'm currently in conversations with people and trying to make it bigger and better for CK3. But I'm also hoping to do another EU4 one soon, and probably go into other Paradox games and get other creators and organizers of events that I know to try and help create some things, get some crossover with all the other Paradox games. That event kind of showed me, it was like, oh wow, that's people actually really live for creators playing multiplayers. Well, found an in here, let's go.
It's definitely one of those things where it's like we all benefit from anything where it's like we can collaborate, we raid each other, we cross promote each other's stuff. I love that aspect of this community, and it seems like that is sort of a rising tide of, I guess, togetherness and collaboration that is happening around this current world events as well. Which is awesome.
Everyone's just so lovely, in the Paradox community. That's the thing.
Yes, 1,000%. Yes, yeah.
Other than that, Welshman.
Yeah.
Other than Lambert, of course. But,
everyone on this podcast excluded, because you guys are all kind of a pain in the ass to work with. But,
these Southerners are ganging up on us
again,
Lambert.
You said that we needed to have our own unique thing. Mine is that I'm an arsehole.
Yes, Lambert is uniquely hateable by all.
Naturally.
Where can people go to hate you, Lambert, and what have you been doing that is worthy of their hate lately?
Right now, I am playing some Papal State over on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Lambert2191. I'm also one session into a roleplay multiplayer where I'm playing as France, and I don't do a French accent. I did try it at one point during the session, and it turned out Russian, so I'm never doing that again. And the Sparta campaign is continuing as well. And just Let's Plays and going over dev diaries and just stuff. It's over there on my YouTube channel.
Wonderful. Loris, what have you been up to lately, and where can people go to see your stuff?
We go to Chapel Comic on my Twitter to see some stuff, but what I've actually been doing is of zero interest to anyone. I've just been working on renovating my house.
Oh, nice.
I managed to fuck up my electrics. It's great. So if you flick a switch downstairs, the entire upstairs lights turn on for no goddamn reason. You can't turn downstairs lights on anymore without turning upstairs lights on. It's a mess.
So the electrics in every British house ever then.
Yeah, pretty much. So I've
Nice.
mostly been doing stuff by candlelight at night, which is very aesthetic. I'll give it that.
Yeah. You're chasing horses through the countryside. You're doing your work by
Yeah.
candlelight. Yeah.
By candlelight.
So-
Yeah.
And Mitch
writing-
called himself a
writing
hermit.
comics with a quill and parchment. So
That would
Right
actually be a
on.
really cool aesthetic. You should totally do that for a one-off.
probably should.
Well, you can always find me at AsaTJ on Twitter. I've got a couple strategy previews up right now. One for Humankind and one for Total War Saga Troy. For those of you that are interested in those two things, which seems like there's a pretty significant overlap a lot of the time with the Paradox audience on 4X and on Total War. I also have started a new EU4 series. From the beginning, we were playing as Sweden. Anybody that says that we started out as Dithmartian and died a horrible death is lying. They're trying to smear my ability as an EU4 player. Definitely didn't happen. We never played as Dithmartian. We started out as Sweden, and we're doing great. And that's over on twitch.tv/LoreSwornOrder. It will eventually be on YouTube as well, but you guys know what my definition of will eventually be on YouTube is at this point.
It's like a catchphrase.
Yeah. Poor Agamede exported all of those videos, and I still haven't uploaded them yet. So, but I have them. I have them on my hard drive now.
I guess that's
downloaded
a start.
Yeah, I got one step closer. Anyway, and follow us here on NoCB Cast. We're also NoCB Cast on Twitter. You can drop a subscription if you want to support what we're doing. All that cool stuff. And we'll see you here same time next week.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye now.
Oh, and Midge, thanks for being on the show. You're welcome back anytime. It's
Cheers.
awesome.
Oh, yeah, you've been great as
Absolutely.
usual.
It was great to be
Yep.
here. Thank you.
Yeah.
But
All
only
right,
if you
later,
invite us to
everybody.
Coliseum again. That's the condition.
Yeah, I mean, if,
I already said it that in the future events, anyone who has been on a previous event automatically kind of has a seat. That's kind of what I'm going. That secret Discord that we have, that is now the that's the Creator Coliseum Discord. It is an invite-only club, which again is not very PC at the moment. So we'll keep that on the down low.
Got it.
Dibs England.
Yeah. All right. See you guys later.
Bye-bye.